And the last book for St. Patrick's Day is The Leprechaun's Gold. Now, these pages might be a little difficult for me, but I'll get it. There's an older man and a lot of people dancing and a cat. Long ago, before even your great-great-great-grandfather was born, there lived in a small village in Ireland a man known to all as Old Pat. Old Pat was a harpist. That means that he played the harp. And a good one at that. Many a wedding was made the merrier by Old Pat's harp. Oh, this is a wedding dress and there's the groom. So he's at a wedding. He looks a little, just not very happy. In the same village dwelled young Tom. I'm going to go with that's young Tom. Tom had learned his own harp playing from Pat's teaching. But now Tom thought himself a better harpist than Old Pat. He was much given to boasting and bragging and charging the villagers great amounts of silver for his skills. Old Pat was humble and willing to play his music for free for those he knew had not the means to pay. "Foolish old man," scoffed young Tom. "What use is a gift if not to make you rich?" Old Pat replied, "I am rich in friends, and that is enough." So, Old Pat is a nice person, even birds like, and young Tom is just not quite as happy. It is to be supposed that life would have continued along its way for Old Pat and young Tom had they not seen the announcement. By order of the king, harping contest to choose the finest harpist in Ireland at the royal palace. All may enter. Pat's looking and Tom's looking. To be known as the best harpist in Ireland would be an honor indeed, said Old Pat. There's Old Pat. Don't waste your time, old man, sneered Tom. It's a young man like myself they'll be wanting. But Pat shook his head and gathered his few meager possessions for the journey. Aha, thought young Tom. If we travel together, he's sure to offer me a bite of his food. That would save me a penny or two. So even though he's not being very nice, he expects Old Pat to share some of his food so he won't have to spend the money on it. So he wants him to share. And so it was that on this night the two sat together by their fire of twigs. They were footsore and weary, that means tired, from walking the many miles toward the royal palace. As he listened to Pat practicing for the contest, a sudden thought flashed through young Tom's mind. I could lose to this ridiculous old man. So, as Old Pat turned his head for a second, the wicked boy quickly snapped a string on Pat's harp and pushed his own spare string deep inside his bag. I'm sorry for your trouble, he said to Old Pat, but I have no string to lend you, for I might need it myself. So now he breaks people's things and he's a liar. Old Pat sighed. He had no money to buy a new string. The harping contest was as good as lost. Oh, I know it's kind of dark and you can't see it, but there's a missing string right down the middle. And Old Pat needed that string, and young Tom was not being very nice at all. Then suddenly through the darkness came a cry, "Help!" The two men shivered, for they knew tales of tricks played on poor travelers by villain leprechauns. "Surely 'tis the little people that's after us," whispered young Tom. He's got his hands over his ears. He is not helping. Not going to happen. But look at Pat. He's going to see if he can help. But as the voice rose to a wail, old Pat's kindness of heart proved stronger than his fear of leprechaun tricks. "We must find out who's in trouble," he cried to Tom. "Not I," declared Tom. "I'll have nothing to do with it. I'll not take the risk of missing the contest." He turned his back to the voice and covered his ears. Didn't want to hear it. On shaking legs, old Pat walked toward the sound of the voice. In a clearing, he saw a tiny man with his foot down in a rabbit hole. So he accidentally stepped down the rabbit hole. What is that mean old rabbit doing? He's holding the man's leg. He has no idea what's going on. He just knows something has grabbed a hold of him and is holding and won't let him go. I'd be screaming too. "Help me, sir," cried the little man. "I took off my shoes to rest my feet, and a rabbit has taken a hold of my big toe. Help me." Okay, so he does know it's rabbit. He still isn't happy. From deep in the burrow came the shrill laugh of the rabbit. "Let go, you rogue," the little man yelled down the hole. "I'll have you for dinner, you pesky bag of flea-ridden fur." There's the shoes that he took off. Think the rabbit's gonna let go? "I'll soon fix that scoundrel," thought old Pat. He bent down and barked piercingly, as a fox might in the night. The rabbit let out a scream of fright, and out popped the little man's toe. Because the rabbit let go because he thought he heard a fox. "Thank you," cried the leprechaun, for a leprechaun he was. "Come," said Pat, trying not to laugh, for a funnier sight he thought never to see. I've not much to offer, but what I have you're welcome to share." Well, that was very nice. There's Pat and a fire and a leprechaun. Old Pat led the leprechaun back to the fire. "I see your fellow traveler has up and gone," said the leprechaun. "A brave fellow indeed he proved to be, but I thank you kindly for your help. I'd like to repay you." "I'll be needing no payment," answered old Pat. He picked up his harp and began to play a soft tune to soothe the little man. "You play well," said the leprechaun, "but I'm thinking your harp is not in a good way." "Oh, I have a broken string," answered old Pat sadly. "I'm on my way to the harping contest at the royal palace, but I'll not win now. I have no money to buy a new string." "Ah," declared the leprechaun sharply, "so it's the gold you'll be wanting." "No, indeed," cried old Pat, mighty alarmed. He knew terrible things happened to those who searched for crocks of leprechaun gold. "Ah, but yes, I think it's so," answered the leprechaun firmly. He thinks that Pat just wants the gold. He does not. He's asleep. And look at what we have here. Suddenly, old Pat's eyes would not stop from closing. He was really tired. With a sigh, he fell asleep. The leprechaun blew a silvery note on his whistle. Out of the forest came a band of little men, each carrying a bag. "He wants the gold," said the leprechaun, as he told the tale of the old Pat. "You know what to do." The little men nodded solemnly as they clicked open their bags. I don't know where this is going, good or bad. When old Pat awakened the next morning, he looked around in fright, but the leprechaun was gone. "It's a lucky escape I've had," cried old Pat, as he picked up his harp case and set off for the royal palace. All right, he's got his walking stick, he's got his harp, and he's walking. He's going to go past the sheep all the way to the royal palace. Oh, look who it is. Young Tom. As old Pat reached the courtyard, I'm trying to straighten this page up a little bit. It's crooked. That's a little bit better. As old Pat reached the courtyard, young Tom took the stage, looking mighty pleased and confident. He began to play a sweet tune, but, as if bewitched, the strings on his harp began to break. One by one they twanged and twinged and twirled in the air, until all lay dangling. Not one of them stayed. Young Tom gazed at his harp in horror, but then he knew. "Leprechauns," he muttered, as he hung his head and shuffled from the stage. There's not one string left that didn't break. Now it was old Pat's turn. With sadness in his heart, the old man reached for his harp. Then his eyes widened, for there inside his bag lay a glittering golden harp. "The leprechaun's gold," gasped old Pat. "Look how beautiful that harp is, and it has all the strings." He lifted the golden harp and began to play. He played the merriest music ever heard, so wonderful that the wind itself stopped to listen. Now, that means he definitely did not live in Nebraska, because the wind does not stop in Nebraska. A wild tune it was, which filled the people's hearts with joy and their lips with laughter. As the music seized their feet, the people began to dance. Soon the courtyard was filled with a dancing, singing, laughing crowd. The other harpists knew now that this was Pat's day, and danced along with the people. Even young Tom, who had learned a hard lesson, found generosity growing in his heart. There's young Tom, looking a little bit nicer. People dancing. And old Pat playing his golden harp. This is kind of hard to hold with a big page. When the final note faded away, the king rose from his throne and beckoned to Pat. "Old man," said the king, "the prize is yours. Never have I heard such music. From now on, you will play always for me and my people. You are awarded the title Royal Harpist of Ireland." I'm going to go with "This is the king, but he had a crown on." People definitely were listening and liking it and dancing and having a good old time. From the nearby forest came the tinkling sound of a little leprechaun laughing. "Ooh, there are 16 four-leaf clovers in this book. Can you find them all? I was not even looking for them." And we don't really have time to go back and look. Oh, because they weren't where my words were. They were up here and around all the pages. Well, some of them were. Some of them were just around the pictures. Well, I at least want to show you one. There's one 4-leaf clover. There's another 4-leaf clover. Now that you know what they look like, 3, you can find some on your own. 4, 5, 'Put his hands over his ears. Okay, I will not look for the rest of them. But now that you know, you can go back at the beginning of the book and see if you can find them.